Om Namah Shivaya. I am Komal Dadlani, and we are here today to continue with our studies of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali under the light of mental health. So last class we went more deeply into what the mind is made of. We said that mind is made of prana, and that this prana can take the quality of three different attributes, so three gunas, which are called rajas, tamas, and sattva. And our main conclusion from this class was that we identified that being energy, it is very difficult for one to silence the mind or shut the mind down or delete a thought. But what one can do is to transform the mind, transform the way it is moving, and transform thoughts, reshape emotions rather than suppress them or try to delete them. This, which is what Patanjali referred to as the suspension of thought in his Yoga Sutras. We're going to read here one of the most famous sutras within the Yoga Sutras itself. It says, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha. And if we translate this into English, this means yoga is the suspension of the activities of the mind. So he never said the deletion of the activities of the mind, or erasing the mind, or silencing it down. He always spoke of it as a transformation of the energy of the mind in order to experience thought at a different level. So yogas is this experience of silence. Many of you might have also heard of it as union of the individual soul with the cosmic soul, the universal creator. If we go a little more deeper into this definition, yoga is an experience of being where I cease to see myself as a separate entity. So the ego is kind of weakened, and I see myself to be separate to everything that surrounds me, and I am in harmony with everything that comes to me and everything that leaves from me as well. Chitta is the Manomaya Kosha and the Vignamaya Kosha combined together. So Patanjali refers to the whole of the mind substance, the Vignamaya and the Manomaya Kosha together as one soul thing, the Chitta. Okay? Vritti is a mental modification, so it's a different shape that this quality takes within the Vignamaya and the Manomaya Kosha. Basically, it is a thought. Okay, so whenever the energy within the koshas, within the astral body, takes a particular wave, a different shape, a particular vibration that changes the field, that becomes into a thought, and it is known in Sanskrit as vritti. Nirodha means suspension. So what is yoga? What is the experience of yoga, and what is the ultimate purpose of our yoga practice at the end of the day? Though it's not so much our subject of study, but for us to understand the word, is for us to reshape the energy of the mind in such a way that vrittis, so the oscillation of vibration within the chitta, within the mind field, is suspended. And what happens when the energy of the mind field is suspended? So if we look at this image here of this beautiful lake which has a lot of water, a lot of mental energy, we want to just to use the analogy of the lake with the mind. And you see the water here on this surface is completely still. There is no waves in the surface of the lake. And as a result of there being complete steadiness on the surface, then you are able to see beyond the surface, and you're able to see beyond into its depth. And so this is when you are able to create suspension, then you're able to see beyond thought and beyond your intellect, beyond the koshas, beyond the functioning of your mind, into the energy of your mind, and you're able to become more selective when it comes to thought, and more responsive in how you would like to approach a situation as opposed to remaining reactive to it. So it is said that as a consequence of one also studying one's vrittis, so as one bringing more harmony, more sattva, more harmony to the way that the prana is flowing throughout this throughout these koshas, Vignamaya, Manomaya kosha. When the lake is studied, when the vrittis and the thought waves are studied, Patanjali says here in Sutra number 3 of the Samadhi Pada, he says, Tada drashtu swarupi vashtanam. At that time, when the thought waves are studied, the perceiver rests in his own true nature. And what is one's own true nature? One's own true nature is Purusha, what is Patanjali says. What is Purusha? Purusha is the source of everything. And at the beginning of the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali speaks of there being, he looks at it as there being a little bit of a distinction between the creator and us, the creation, which he refers to as Prakriti. But ultimately, as he develops his sutras further and into the Kaivalya Pada, he comes to the conclusion in what he shares with us that we as the creation and the creator are one. And when we are able to suspend the oscillation of the mind and create this very, very steady surface of the lake, a very, very steady surface of the mind in the lake of our mind, then we're able to experience the union of us as creation with Purusha, and we're able to realize that we are the creator itself. And so we are more than this physical body, more than the thoughts. Thoughts become then objects to interact with rather than things that happen to us. Emotions become experiences rather than our personality or our character. Everything becomes more clear to us. Patanjali speaks that this source, Purusha, is something that has always existed, so which he refers to as Sat. It has always been there. So, like for example, my body, you can say my body was born in 1980, but for Purusha, you cannot say that Purusha was born at any point of time. Purusha is something that has always existed. So the creator, the soul, is something that has always been there. So this is the experience that comes as a result of a steadied lake of mind where there is a suspension of vrittis. You feel yourself to be in union, in yoga with Purusha. You feel yourself to be Purusha itself, the source and the creator, your true nature. What happens when there are vrittis in the surface of the lake, when there are waves and modifications to the water, so to the energy, the chitta, the field of energy that makes your mind, then one tends to identify with the vritti. One tends to identify with the thought. When there is movement of mental energy and there's a different vibration that rises to the surface that's different to the base vibration from which it rises, then you experience a thought, and then you will most likely identify with this thought. And when you identify with the thought, then you experience the result of the thought. So Patanjali, in his sutra number 4, he said, Vitri Swarupyam Itaratra. When the mind is not concentrated, so when there is lack of attention, so now we know that actually suspension happens as a result of attention. Maybe from class number 1, you could say that your mind experienced a little degree of suspension, right? A different shift, a change in the quality of your mind, and that happened as a result of attention, which is what Patanjali is saying here as well in Sutra number 4. When the mind is not concentrated, so there's an element of lack of attention, when attention is not funneled into a singular thing, and you're not making an effort to focus on one thing, one object of attention, then the perceiver will tend to identify with the modifications of the mind. And the perceiver will tend to jump like a monkey from one thought to another. It will identify with the modifications that happen and rise from the vibratory field, the base vibration of the mind. So Patanjali also goes into explaining a bit more deeply in terms of the different shapes that this Manomaya and Vijnamaya koshas can take throughout our astral body, which will also impact our mood and our emotions. And he says that this prana can be organized into 5 different ways as per the image that you can see here on the screen. So we have different images of different lakes and oceans, so water basically, to stay on with the same analogy. And in picture number 1 and 2, you can see how the water of the lake the water of the ocean is flowing very erratically and very abruptly, and there's a lot of movement, so there are a lot of waves, a lot of vidris. In picture number 3, there are less waves, so there's a little more calmness to the movement of the water. In picture number 4, there are even less waves. And in picture number 5, there are no waves at all. Okay, so all of the waves you could say of the ocean, the lake, are unified into one. There's just one wave, like one singular thought, really. That's what when you are practicing attention and meditation, what you are doing is you are unifying all the potential of vrittis, all the potential of energy in the mind. You unify it into one single one. What is that one single thought? The thought of your object of concentration, like what you did when we practiced tratak with the candle flame. And he says that these different shapes that the water, that the energy of the mind can take, will determine one's mood or emotions. So, for example, when there is a lot of movement, so when all the energy of the mind is very, very scattered, and there are a lot of waves, and there is no harmony, and there is a lot of vibratory shift within the chitta, within the mind stuff, in the subtle body, then we will always tend to experience that either, and we can go to the slide here as well. You will always tend to experience that either as what is known as muda, which is depression, or kshipta, which is anxiety, stress, nervousness. So very interestingly, when we are depressed and we feel low, it isn't that we don't have any energy. In depression, as per Patanjali's Sutras, there is a lot of energy, but the energy is very scattered and very disharmoniously flowing throughout the astral body, probably because there's been an interference of what we discussed last time of rajas and tamas, like a lack of harmony as well. The gunas also feed into this. And so when we are experiencing either depression or anxiety, there is always a lot of movement in the mind, a lot of erratic vibratory currents rising to the surface and then becoming weaker again, and this is what creates that state. And he says that whenever the energy of the mind is disorganized, then you will always experience that as painful. This will always be, will end up in you not enjoying it at the end of the day. What creates the shift and the difference from being in these two states of mind, so muda or kshipta, is your attention. As soon as you bring attention onto the fact that you are depressed or onto the fact that you are anxious, you break the flow of that and you enter into a new state of mind, which is called vit Vikshipta. Okay, Vikshipta. In Vikshipta, you recognize that you are dispersed or that you are very, very low in mood and depressed, and you make a conscious effort to change that. And as soon as you bring attention to the emotion, and as soon as you bring attention to your experience of anxiety or to your experience of depression, then that attention and awareness over the feeling immediately transforms it. And you come into what is known as Vikshipta. He also speaks of a third state of mind, which is known as Vikshipta. So if you look at the image of the water again, Vikshipta is picture number 3. So you see that there are less waves in the surface of the ocean, and so you're able to see more clearly, really, through the surface. Basically, you are shedding awareness onto the fact that you are either in muda, depressed, or shedding awareness onto the fact that you are anxious. As soon as you become aware that you don't feel good, then suddenly it also changes a little bit. So awareness plays a very important role in changing the shape of the energy and into stopping this anxious or depressive vibratory current from sustaining itself. This is called Vikshipta, okay? Bringing awareness to your emotional state, which immediately transforms it and changes it. Then we have Ekagrata. Ekagrata is basically concentration, one-pointed concentration. Ekagrata is a very desirable state to be in, so be very attentive in the moment, to be present. Okay, this is what Ekagrata is, what we now call to be present. And when we are present, then there is absence of pain, then there is pleasantness, then there is contentment, then there is joy, there is confidence, there is clarity of mind, there is altruism. So as we can see, we can immediately create a shift in our character, in our personality, in the kind of thoughts that we want to entertain in regards to different people or a situation, by changing the shape of the energy in our mind and favoring Ekagrata. And then he speaks of Nirodha. This is the 5th state of mind, Nirodha, which is a state of when the attention is, when the vitris, the thought waves, are suspended. Okay, so this is when everything, all of the potential of energy in your mind is collected onto one single thing. So basically it is Ekagrata, concentration, sustained for the 28 minutes more or less that we discussed earlier. So it is a sustained and prolonged state of concentration for a prolonged period of time, at which point you're able to see beyond the surface. So if we look at this graph here, this graph helps us understand that what determines the shape of the mind that we tend to fall into and the shape of mind that we sustain is our attention. Our attention is the stick shift for moving from one state of mind to the other. When our attention is very dispersed, then we will unavoidably fall into depression and fall into anxiety. When we make a conscious effort to bring attention to the situation, we're able to break that flow of depression and break the anxiety. And as we bring awareness to that and make an effort to remain present with what is in front of us, then we will encourage a more positive state of mind, more positive state of being, which will help us transmute and come off from the depressive cycle or the anxious cycle into a better sense of self. So if we look at the graph here and we look at the vertical axis is the percentage of attention at a given moment. And then on the horizontal axis, we see the length of time that I'm able to hold my attention for. So on the blue line, so when it comes to Kshipta and Muda, which is reflected in the blue line, We see, for example, that our attention starts off at 15%. This is just an example. It could be starting off at 80% as well. We see here that it starts at 15% and it is held on to something for a little bit of time before it drops down to a lower level of attention, meaning I dropped the thought weakened, I got distracted in my meditation practice, and then my attention rises potentially onto something else, a different thought, and then it decreases again, and then so on. So there's a lot of variation in my attention, possibly throughout multiple objects of attention, this would be a very not so positive state of multitasking where you are losing your attention the whole time. But this is what is called kshipta and muda. Okay? Then, for example, when it comes to vikshipta, there is a higher degree of attention in vikshipta. In vikshipta, we bring more awareness to the situation, and so you see that there is less variability over time. When it comes to ekagrata, if you look at the green line in ekagrata, we have 100% a full degree of our attention. All of our attention is sustained for a prolonged period of time without oscillation. So this would be your 12 seconds of concentration, or 2 minutes and 28 seconds of dhyana, of sustained concentration. This is the green line. If we were to extend that for a total of 28 minutes, would be your samadhi. Okay, there is no variability. I am fully resting my attention onto the present moment. I'm extremely present, and that presence doesn't vary. So what is it that makes this, what is the determining factor for when it comes to different states of mind? Your degree of attention. If you let your attention run wild, then by default, ultimately, you will fall into muda, depression, or kshipta, anxiety. If you make a concerted effort to train your attention and to constantly remain present rather than reactive, or imagining the future, or ruminating in the past and worrying about what might happen or not, and just focus on the present moment, then you will bring you will bring more ekagrata, bring more vikshipta into your manomaya, vignamaya koshas, and you will be able to be better equipped mentally, emotionally, to do for any kind of situation. So ultimately, the conclusion of today's class is that we are our own therapy. Our attention is the stick shift, the determining factor for changing from one mood to another, from feeling anxious to feeling centered and feeling contained, or from feeling depressed to feeling collected again and capable. Our attention is a determining element for all of this, and so our attention is worth gold. And when we meet next time on our next class, we're going to see how Patanjali recommends that we train our attention. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time.